This week's news from the tubes on F5 Live Refreshing Technology is proudly powered by Malwarebytes. Whether you use a PC, a Mac, or a mobile device, Malwarebytes Premium is the company's strongest protection ever. It fights threats that traditional antivirus software can't stop, plus it actively blocks threats like worms, rogues, dialers, trojans, spyware, and a whole lot more. It allows you to use your computer and mobile devices with confidence and peace of mind. To learn more and to get a special price, you can go to f5live.tv/malwarebytes. In 2018, a group of media owners led by Sony put out a couple of interesting lawsuits, in particular the one against Cox Communications, which is one of the largest cable companies here in the United States. They argued that the company was negligent in not their enforcement so much as their involvement in online piracy. And the primary argument was that after the company received copyright claims, they should have terminated the accounts of the users receiving the complaints. Now, the argument never said that they should terminate the accounts of users convicted of piracy, just the ones accused of. We wrote about this at the time. We talked about it at the time. The thing that's interesting is Cox lost. The argument that they were somehow involved in or complacent in online piracy because they did not terminate every user account for suspected online pirates was accepted. And they got $1 billion penalty for it. Now, an appellate court ended up dismissing the fine, but did not overturn the ruling. And that has created a confusing situation. We all know that ISPs do track your activity online. They generally know what sites you visit, where you're going. What they don't know necessarily is every image that was downloaded from a website, right? They don't know the file names or the URLs of every PNG, every logo on our website for partners, and they don't necessarily care about that. That's not what they're up to. They're trying to collect metadata on your activities. They can sell it as advertising data, and whether or not the name of the splash screen for this episode, that doesn't have any bearing on anything. But with this, they would essentially have to be able to validate and verify every copyright notice that comes in to then determine whether or not an account should be terminated, which would require them to store a ton of information, which is crazy. The storage needs would be bananas. Plus, let's say Avram and I shared a house, and I am downloading music from I don't even entirely know where you would do that to. LimeWire is the first thing that came to mind. It's not that. Almost certainly it's a torrent. So let's go with I'm downloading music and movies from a torrent site, and Avram's not. But we share an internet connection. All of a sudden, Avram's going to lose his internet because I'm being accused of downloading music? The internet's not an optional thing today, right? We've talked about that a lot over the years. The internet's not an optional thing in society. So, what? There's all kinds of problems here, and not the least of which is there is a U.S. law that was put in place almost specifically to protect AT&T, but that AT&T wasn't liable if you made a long-distance phone call and planned a bank robbery. That wasn't AT&T's fault. while that kind of stuff has been weirdly applied to other platforms, and we've had all kinds of conversations about misapplication of those laws. This sounds like the exact same thing to me, Avram. That Cox is just providing the pipes. They're not involved in this any more than AT&T is involved in me making a phone call and planning a bank robbery. You're not making any noise.
Oops, sorry.
There we
So
go.
yeah, I agree. I agree that they shouldn't have to do that. They shouldn't have to do that. I mean, it creates a burden on the ISP, and then of course you're guilty until proven innocent.
Mm-hmm.
And consider this problem too, right? If you may live somewhere where there's only one ISP, so if your ISP decides that you are a potential copyright violator and to ban you from having an account, that means you can't get online, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And
Right.
like
I
we
mean,
said, it's not an optional thing today. Many of us work from home.
yeah,
Um,
I mean, that's
you've
like being
got
without electricity.
exactly, exactly. And while not illegal, like it is in many jurisdictions to live in a facility that doesn't have electricity, uh, I mean, it's pretty close.
Right. I mean, you can't. There's a lot that you can't do with that internet. So, yeah, I mean, it's a really serious problem. And then, I don't know. For example, if they were to follow this, what if somebody tries to do something to wants to get at you personally? So they do something to try and file a complaint against you,
Mm-hmm.
so that you will get, lose your internet.
And that's not a new thing. We talked about the Nikola um, autonomous trucks 2 years ago, maybe. That it turned out that the video was just recorded on a hill and that the trucks didn't actually work. And anybody who talked about it or used the video were getting copyright strikes on YouTube. It would be far from the first time that a DMCA copyright claim was made falsely. We've gotten them.
Right. Or falsely and maliciously, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It happens all the
so
time.
so yes, you could get somebody cut off of their internet by, because who's to say that um who's to say that, like, are they going to believe, but if they follow this precedent, then they should believe everybody who files a complaint, right?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's Sony, which is a big company, and you hope doesn't just make false claims against people, but they could.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe it's somebody else. Maybe I say, oh, I'm a little video game developer and they downloaded my video game illegally. Cox, I want you to ban this person,
Yep.
right? How much effort is the ISP going to go through to protect their customer? If they're being held liable, then the best thing for them is to cut their loss and to cut the customer, right?
Yep.
Put the burden on the customer to maybe prove that they didn't do it or whatever it is.
Right.
So, that's not good, right? Like you don't want that kind of situation,
Yeah.
right?
And as the ISP, you don't want that kind of heat coming at you, for sure.
Right.
It's just an all around terrible idea and terrible situation that hopefully. So, the reason we're talking about this now, that was 2018. We've been through the appeals process. They've gotten the $1 billion penalty overturned. Now they want the Supreme Court to take it up because they believe, I think rightly so, that there are laws that are protecting them against this in particular, and that they should be upheld. And I totally agree. I think this is a dangerous situation and a terrible precedent to set. And I suspect that if the Supreme Court agrees to hear it, which I think they will, there's almost no way it stands. This this seems like the kind of thing that gets stepped on, because this is crazy. And there's been a number of things in this arena, not quite this, but in this arena, that have come back 9-0 with this current Supreme Court, protecting consumers against all kinds of stuff. And we've seen them come back 9-0. Actually, for as much as the news talks about the divided court, there have been a lot of 9-0 consumer facing rulings from the current Supreme Court. So I suspect we'll see something similar. It may not be 9-0, it might be 8-1. But I don't think this withstands the current Supreme Court, which is a good thing. Their job is to protect people, and I think this ruling does not. I think this is dangerous. Because like you said, single ISP, you're banned because somebody maliciously makes a false claim, and then all of a sudden, what do? You got to go to Starlink, or what's the other one?
Maybe T-Mobile home internet if you have it in the area.
If you have it. Yeah, exactly. All of a sudden now you have these really secondary choices, and that's it. And God forbid a situation arises where they're forced to start talking to each other,
Right.
It's a bad starting point. Bad starting point.
Yes.
And guilty until proven innocent is not the way this is supposed to work. So hopefully the Supreme Court will take this case and get rid of this, because this is not good for anybody. Hello, YouTube. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of F5 Live, Refreshing Technology. If you did, please subscribe to the channel down below, and of course hit the notification bell, because we know that subscriptions don't mean much on YouTube anymore. If you've got topics that you'd like us to talk about in the future, please comment them down below. And if you'd like to not follow us on YouTube, there's lots of ways that you can follow along with our content by going to plughitslive.com/subscribe. There you'll see all of our shows and all of the ways that you can watch, listen, and follow along.